to a new week with me, Susie Pettit, and I have a special treat for you today. I have a guest on the show. Her name is Natalie Jill, and Natalie Jill is a fat loss expert turned high performance coach who helps women age in reverse, warriors, and level up their life. At age 48, which is my age, she has rebuilt herself and created everything from nothing 3 times over, warriors. She is gifted at helping women uncover what's holding them back from getting the results they want and guiding them to uncover their true passion and callings so that they can thrive in their lives. Sounds good? Natalie Jill has created a globally recognized brand with well over 2.5 million social media followers worldwide. She has 2 best-selling books, and she's been recognized by Forbes and Greatest several years in a row, running as one of the top health and wellness influencers in the world. And with all that, what I'm most excited about is to get her on the show today to talk about her new book, Aging in Reverse. It is her newest message, and she helps women in their 40s and 50s age in reverse so they can level up their lives. She challenges the messages that we're getting in society as women as we hit our 40s. And instead of believing the messages we're told about getting older, that it's normal to gain weight and to lose memory, to have memory loss and lose focus and all that, she shines a light on how our aging and physical experience are affected by our mindset and the stories we tell ourselves. What an awesome guest for us, and I am thrilled to have her on today. Let's go, warriors. Hello, warriors, and please help me in welcoming Natalie Jill to our show today. Welcome, Natalie.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much for being on the show. And I would love to help listeners, if they've been hiding under a rock and they have not heard of you yet, how you have gotten to where you are, and specifically with promoting the message of aging in reverse.
Yeah, gosh, that's a big question. Let's see, how far back do you want me to go?
Pretty far back, because if they haven't heard from you, I'm not sure they know.
Yeah. So my journey started about, when my daughter was a baby. So right now, just to put it in perspective, she's 12. So this is, 12 years ago. Yeah. I had just had my daughter, and I had gained a lot of weight for the first time in my life. I was about, I gained 60 pounds more than I am today right now. So I'm only 5'2", so 60 pounds was quite a bit of weight. Yeah. And for the first time in my life, I was really struggling with my body image and confidence just around that alone. But what really the kicker was I was a brand new mom. So I had the hormones raging and all of that. And I was going through a divorce. So I had added depression and stress on top of that. And this was back in 2007 when the housing market and stock market, everything had crashed in the United States. So financially, things were super unstable. And I was right in the crossfire of it because, I was in that housing bubble where I had, was taking money out of my home to cover things because it had appreciated so much. And I found myself, like many Americans, completely backwards on a mortgage, owing more than my house was worth, even though I had put a significant amount of money into my house. Going through divorce, new mom hormones, overweight. I had just like everything felt like it was just falling apart in my life. Like a lot of stuff happening that felt really often.
One of those things would be, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I had all this stuff going on, and I didn't know, I just remember thinking, like, is this all there is? Is this what happens? I was at the time I was in my mid 30s, and I thought, is this what happens in your mid 30s? Like, you have a baby, things change. And now, this is my new body. This is my new daily life. And I just remember feeling really depressed and stuck. And the only reason I felt that I had to get up in the morning was my daughter. Other than that, I was just a blob and depressed and wanted to hide under my sheets all day. I didn't have any drive or motivation. But a turning point happened for me when I was walking her and my 2 dogs. And I remember the day so clearly because it was a really impactful moment. But I caught one of those windows that has the mirror reflection, and I caught a glimpse of myself. And it really hit me looking at the stroller and my dogs and me. And I was like, is this my life? Like, I looked at my body. I'm like, I don't even recognize what I'm looking at. Is this my life? Is this all I want for it? And I went home and I put my daughter down for a nap, and I made a vision board. It was the very first thing I ever did. I made a vision board of, if I could just wave a wand and have everything I want in life, what would it be? And I put like happy, fit girls on there. I put beach. I put a happy couple. I put just everything that would make me happy. And I remember making that vision board and getting emotional around it and thinking, okay, if I don't feel that way now, but I can draw these emotions looking at this vision board, maybe I'm onto something. So I would stare at that vision board and like daydream and fantasize. And I would ask myself, okay, the girl on that vision board, what would she be doing? How does she eat? What does she do with her body? Who does she talk to in her life? What decisions does she make? And I just would ask myself those questions because I wasn't feeling like that person, but I knew the girl on the board was. So I would do that. And that's what drew me into digging deep into nutrition and fitness and all of that. And then I found what many of your listeners might find when they go on that search, that like there's just information overload. Like, what the heck? There's a million things out there. And this is over 10 years ago. There's even more now. But it was like, do I not have carbs? Do I not have sugar? Do I omit fat? Do I fast? I didn't know. Do I measure? I was so confused. And I'm a researcher. I just dove in. And I decided ultimately to become my own nutritionist. I went and got my own certifications, and really for my own learning. But what happened was so amazing because my body started to change. And the more my body started changing and the more I was eating healthy foods and learning, the more my mood was shifting. My focus was coming back, my energy, my hope. I was starting to feel more passionate about things. I just noticed that. So I turned to Facebook. And at the time I had, my few hundred high school friends. It was not a big Facebook. It wasn't the 2 million it is now. But I remember turning to Facebook and saying, okay, I'm in a weird place, but I'm changing what I'm doing. And I'm going to post what I'm eating here for my own accountability. If it helps you too, awesome. And that's what I did. I started for my own accountability, and it really drew a lot of attention, and people were curious, and I was onto something. And I never approached it from a business initially. It was really my own accountability. But the more I saw women were interested in connecting with me and were learning through my own vulnerability and my own sharing, the more the idea of a business came about. So that's how my original Natalie Jill Fitness and my fat loss program started.
Well, and I think that's so important to highlight, and that's why I wanted to bring focus to it, because if someone was, to hear you on the show today for the first time and Google you, they're going to see this amazingly awesome, wonderful woman that you are today. And it's not that you weren't amazingly and awesome then, but you were in a different body, in a different
totally
experience,
different,
with a different mindset. And to just show that age, you're 48, I'm 48, and that it is not the age that's defining you.
Yes.
That it is more your
Exactly.
mindset. And that's what I love about your book. And that is, I love your, I don't know what you call it, but how you do your
transformation triangle.
The transformation triangle. Thank you. The state, the plate, and then the weight. Could you explain that a little?
Yeah, absolutely. So what brought me, who I was then is not who I am today. However, some things have applied and kept going. Like a lot of times I speak on what I just shared with you, my story, and a woman will come up to me and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, I'm you. This is me. I'm stuck." And I will look at them and I'll say, "No, we're not the same, because I transformed." So you can transform too, because I'm not that person anymore. Who I was 12 years ago at the start of this journey is not who I am today. But what I will tell you, what I figured out then, and I didn't have a name for it until now, what is that there's a transformation triangle, and that's critical for anyone that's going to transform. You see, we're not the results of willpower. We're not the results of motivation or attending a seminar. We're the results of our habits. And our habits define who we become. I'm very clear that is the case now. And anyone can change their habits and become an entirely different person. But that idea of changing your habits starts with your mindset. You have to decide. You have to make a decision. So the transformation triangle is, if you want to picture like a tripod has 3 legs, right? And if you remove one of the legs, it's going to fall over. It's not even. And with transformation, when it comes to our bodies, our health, how we look, how we feel, there's 3 parts that are necessities. One's the state, changing your state, and that's your mindset. The next element is planning your plate, what you're eating, what you're fueling your body with. And then the third is your weight and like how you're moving your body, how you feel about your body, the exercises you're doing. But all three of those things are really critical. If you're missing one of them, you're not going to have a lasting transformation. So I knew then that my first step was not just following a diet. It wasn't just beating myself up at the gym. It was changing my mindset and deciding that I was going to take on a new approach. And that's a step that a lot of women skip. They stay stuck in the I'm stuck, I'm depressed, I'm miserable, nothing works for me, my hormones, my this, my that, whatever. What do you have for me? And they're
And I
missing
think,
that.
yeah, I think that's exactly where they stay stuck. And then they find evidence to stay stuck there
Yes.
by what we're being told by the media and even the medical professional, like, oh, well, it's
Yes.
your age, it's your hormones, you're going to have, memory loss. Like, so we find these
Yeah.
excuses for why we are here. And I
Yeah.
love that you just blast that out of the water.
Yeah, because I call this false assumed truth. So I always say I kill fat for a living, and people assume it's the fat on our bodies, but it's those false assumed truths because I was on to something when people would say, you're 48, you don't look 48. And I would think, well, what's 48 supposed to look like? Like, what do you mean it's not? Why do you think it doesn't look like this? And it really started diving into, gosh, we're so defined by media and friends and doctors. Like if a doctor tells you something, it doesn't mean he's right, by the way. It means he's a doctor with medical experience that is giving you his best guesstimate. It doesn't mean he's right. So just because you have a diagnosis and you're being told this doesn't have to mean what you think it means. And that is where the mindset plays a huge role. I'll give you my mom. I just posted a picture of my mom last night. My mom, when she was in her 60s, she's almost 74. She was told she has type 2 diabetes. Her A1C numbers were off the chart. Now, genetically, that's a pattern in my family. My grandmother had that. Her grandmother had, it's a pattern. And that there's a heavy genetic thing. And the doctor looked at her and said, you've got type 2 diabetes. You're going to gain weight. You need to be on this medicine. You need to do like, he just went right into all the doomsday. My mom called me and I said, well, hold on, wait a minute. Before we jump to that, which has a lot of side effects, let's try changing our diet. Let's try the possibility of that. And so she did. She trusted me. We decided to give it a month. We were not going to be dumb. Like if that doesn't work, of course we'll go to the meds. And the diet worked. Like she got her numbers changed. She lost the weight. She felt amazing. And the doctor's like, what are you doing? You don't need to be on. Now, my mom today at 74 is on a low dose of metformin. She couldn't avoid it forever, but we prolonged it for almost 10 years.
Wow. Wow. And I do want to point out that you said the doctor said you're going to gain weight. And that in itself, that idea, which is just, that is a mindset. That is a thought that we can choose to attach to and believe. And then our actions will follow that instead of questioning that. And that's what I love about your work is that you've done that in your own life too.
Yeah. I had another woman that joined one of my programs last year and she came devastated. She said, look, I've tried everything. My doctor told me I was going to gain 30 pounds and I gained 30 pounds. I don't know what to do. Is there any hope for me? And I said, do you think there's hope? She's like, I don't know. My doctor told me there's not. And I said, okay, well, we got to work on that first. Because the difference between people that succeed and the ones that don't is people that succeed operate from possibility. People that don't operate from circumstance all the time. I'll say that again. People that succeed operate from possibility. People that don't operate from circumstance. So we had to shift that first and she shifted it. And not only did she lose the 30 pounds, she lost more. She's feeling amazing. But that first step, she'll tell you too, was not the diet or the workouts. It was making a decision, deciding that maybe my doctor's not right. Maybe there's another way. Maybe I've just been looking for evidence that he is right. Because let me tell you, Susie, like your doctor tells you that no matter what, you're going to gain 30 pounds. All of a sudden that donut looks a lot more tempting because you're like, well, why shouldn't I have it? I'm going to gain 30 pounds anyway. So you see, our habits do reflect what we believe.
I love it. And I have heard you say before, and it's something that I say often to my listeners, that if we believe it's true, it is true. And it is that, just telling ourselves that thought over and over and over again makes it that way. And what I like about how you said, that moment when you looked in the window and you had reflected to you and then you made a vision board, that really is getting into this, like, okay, so what do you believe is possible? Do you believe it's possible that you're going to always be that, woman who has an extra 60 pounds on her frame? Or do you believe what is on your vision board is possible? And could you speak a little to what I've heard you speak it before your be, do, have mindset?
Yeah. So most people operate from when I have this, I'll become this. So when I have the money, I'll take a vacation. When I have the body, I'll go to the gym. They operate from when I have this, I will become this. And that's a broken model. It does not work. It does not work. What works is you have to, just like the vision board example, you have to start acting as if, thinking the thoughts, doing the habits as the person that you want to become. When you act that way first, when you act as if, when you practice being that type of person, you will have the opposite. So let me just break that down. Let's start with your body, okay? Because that's something that all women can accomplish if they want to. If you keep saying, when I lose the weight, this will happen, you are not going to lose the weight. If you instead say, when I lose the weight, who would I be? How would my day look? Who would I be listening to? Who would I be hanging around? What would I be eating? What would I be doing with my body? You ask yourself those questions, you start doing those things, you become that person. Now let's take that to finances, because that's one people always get stuck on, me included, has been stuck on that many times. Like, when I have these resources, I will do this. Okay, got it. We can't all go jump into a private jet. We can't all have oceanfront property. I understand that. However, let me give you an example. A dream of mine has always been to have ocean view from my house. I love ocean view. Okay. And I've had that since I had that dream. I don't have that right now today. I have a beautiful view, but not that. What I did when I wanted that so badly and I had no money, I was so in debt. This was 12 years ago. I would think, if I had an ocean view, what would that mean to me? How would that reflect? Well, I would see the ocean every day. I would probably walk on the ocean every day. It would be inspiring to me because I'd have, the ocean and the noise and the calm. Okay. How could I implement that now? Well, the way I could implement it is I could have a big picture of an ocean on my vision board that I see every day when I'm working. I could listen to sound on my phone or noise machines of ocean. I could go walk on the beach every day. I'm not far from it. I can go walk on the beach every day. I can go sit there and journal. So do you see, I brought that in, which gave me that same reaction as if I had that ocean view.
Yeah, it's so important. It is this, like, it's a take on that. I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when I am, and then you get there and you're the same person. So why don't we do it first?
Yes.
And, act as if.
Yeah. You could take that to relationships too. When my husband does this, I'll be this. Okay, what if you start being that first and watch how your husband responds to you?
Yes. Yeah.
It works all the time in every direction.
I love that. And so you also speak to, one of the complaints of aging is this loss of focus or loss of memory or loss of energy.
Yeah.
And you help people, you call it your driving core motivator. How do you explain that a lot?
So the two different questions there, but okay, so I'll start with driving core motivator. Driving core motivator is your real reason why you actually want something. Okay. So not everybody wants to look amazing for their age. Not everybody wants to be a size 6 or 8. Not everybody, but so what I want to ask women when they come to me or when they come to you or they come to anybody and they're starting a transformation, what do you want? But more importantly, why do you want it? And that is a painful question for people. They don't want to go there. But when we can go those 10 levels deep and really get to the root of why, everything starts to shift. So an example would be, I get a lot of women that say, I want to lose weight. I'll say, well, why do you want to lose weight? And they'll say, well, I want to be skinny. Okay. That's not a driving core motivator. Right. Why do you want to be skinny? Well, every day when I wake up and I look in my closet, nothing fits. Okay. And when nothing fits, what happens? Well, I get depressed and it puts me in a bad mood. And then I'm late for work because I'm trying to make something fit right. Okay. And then what happens? Well, then I end up putting something baggy on and I don't feel good about myself. And I go into the office and I'm in a bad mood and I'm in my head, and anyone that walks by me that's in a cute outfit, I'm just like, I'm bitchy to them. I don't like them. I'm resentful. Okay. And then what happens? Well, then people aren't nice to me and they're not showing up well. And now I'm not invited out at night to happy hour or to hang out with the girls at lunch. And I don't really have any friends at work. So I'm lonely. Okay. And then what happens? Well, then I'm just kind of in my box and in my bubble all day. And it's like, I hate going to work because I'm just miserable and I'm not talking to anybody. Okay. And then what happens? So see, we're getting deeper. And ultimately what we'll find there is that this person just wants connection and to fit in. That's a very different driving core motivator and reason why than I just want to be skinny.
Yes.
And when we can get to that, and I know we get to it because it usually strikes an emotion. When we can get to that, now we're in a place to decide, okay, now I have a reason.
Mm-hmm. And that will get them to take the action is what
That gets them to take the action. So most people
like
skip that step.
the why inspiration. So why do you think it's so hard for women to say what they want?
Yeah, because they don't do the work. It's like, that's not a quick fix. It's painful. We tend to, most women, numb things out. We don't want to feel. So it's like, we've been trained, okay, I don't feel good, go to the doctor and get a Xanax. I don't feel good, drink some wine at night. I don't feel good, go to sleep early. I don't feel good, turn on reality TV. I don't feel good, let's go gossip with people. Let's go. So we've been trained to numb out, not lean into the feeling.
Yeah.
But leaning into the feeling is where we're going to have the shifts.
That's where we're going to find the motivation, and then make the changes, which is interesting. I wonder about I find the women in sort of this middle age period have spent a lot of their early years sort of pouring themselves into what they think is right, sort of this like vision of what they should do, and whether that's mothering and pouring into the kids. Now the kids are getting older, and oh my gosh, what now? And what do I want? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Have you found that?
Yeah, it's very common. And so when we don't have passion or purpose, we tend to get depressed. I mean, so when women say I'm fatigued, I'm tired, I'm depressed, really that's a matter of passion and purpose. Let me give you an example. If you are listening right now or watching this and you are feeling that way, like I'm just not motivated, I'm tired, I just feel fatigue all the time. What I want to ask you is, I want you to imagine someone you're a huge fan of. Maybe it's a celebrity, a mentor you have. I'll say Oprah for me because I'm obsessed with Oprah. So if Oprah called me, or Oprah calls you, or whoever your person is, they called you right now and said, hey, I heard I've got to meet you, and I carved out 3 hours for you tomorrow morning. Can you meet me tomorrow at 6 a.m.? What happens to your body? What happens to your energy? I guarantee all of you will make it work.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're excited, you're motivated, you're passionate. Okay, that's my example right there. If you are feeling fatigued, not motivated, like you're just going through the motions, it's because we're missing passion and purpose. And now I know that's a heavy thing to realize, and I get it. And that's what we need to lean into, because I want to help you figure that out, because that's what makes a difference. When you're lit up, when you're excited, that's what starts your journey of aging in reverse. Because just look at anyone, picture anyone 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, who to you looks like they're aging really well. It has nothing to do with their skin or the plastic surgery they had or any of that. It's usually the person that's excited and smiling and having fun. Like, they're beautiful. They're look amazing. That
light out, that enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with someone has wrinkles around their eyes or not around their eyes. Like, that's not the thing. It's like they're lit up, they're excited, and that energy is contagious.
Yeah. And so it's interesting, because I find that in itself can really stress people out. Like this sort of idea that they know they need a passion, or like they sort of are like, I don't know what my passion is,
Yeah.
And
well, then you start with something I'm not even kidding. So my daughter's 12 right now. She wants no part of like crafts and stuff. Like, as she was a kid, I used to get excited around the holidays, do crafts with her. But like, I went and bought a gingerbread house to build today, because I'm like, I want to do it.
Exactly.
It could be something so little and dumb, like, but to me, that's fun for me. That lights me up. So I'm not asking you to go solve world hunger. I'm not asking you to go have a new career. Just find something that lights you up, whatever that is. There's so many things. Take a guitar lesson, take a singing lesson, like go join, take a tennis class, like anything that's going to get you out of your rut.
Spark, anything. And I think some of that is allowing yourself to care for yourself too. Because a lot of women who have been moms are like always caring for other people.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
To you.
So I have a membership site called Aging in Reverse. And we do themes every month. And this month's theme is stress and anxiety. And what I spoke into on this month's call was that it's so critical, that self-care component, because if you don't take care of yourself first, you don't show up well for everybody else. And the exercise I had the women in the community do is I had them really go deep into what it would look like on their most perfect day. Like, I had them visualize, like, picture a day in your past that was your most perfect day where you were like not stress-free, calm, you felt like really relaxed and amazing and clear-headed and focused? What was that? And everyone described the same things. It was really unbelievable. They described, and I wrote down the words that they used, but it was really eye-opening for me too. But what they all said, they all said that they felt very present. They were in the present moment. They weren't thinking about past or future. They all said that they weren't on a schedule that day. They pretty much, most of them said it's something with nature. Like they were either outside or they had part of the day outside. It was sunny out. They were connected. They were with somebody they actually enjoy and like, and they were having a deep connection with them, even if they were by themselves talking to them on the phone. There was some kind of connection. And a lot of them said something, like mentioned either a spa or something where somebody else was taking care of them. So I had them do this exercise, like what is that present state that you were in? And what if we could show up to our days with some of that every day? Like how would everything else bounce off of us? And the reason they had an aha moment around that was because if you look at an athlete, any athlete, they train regularly for their event. Like if you're going to go play in the Super Bowl, you are practicing taking care of yourself every day for that. You wouldn't show up not prepared. But we as women, we're not preparing. We're not taking care of ourselves first. And then we're going into the battlefield of like text and email and bosses and kids and everybody else coming at us, and we're not prepared. But we take care of ourselves first. We carve out that time. That's not selfish at all. It's selfish not to, because now you're not showing up as your best self when you're not doing those things.
Did you always hold true to that belief, or is that something that has been?
I will tell you, I didn't even realize I did, but I did. And I felt guilty about it for years, thinking, is that guilty? Is that bad that I put my workout as a priority? Is it bad that I put my walk as a priority? And I've really switched. I'm like, no, that is what has helped me age in reverse. That is what has helped me. So I really leaned into it. And, I could countless stories of people whose businesses exploded, whose marriages got better when they started doing that. Absolutely. So it's not as hard as people think, like to add that into.
And I think it, again, like you said, these little steps that we can take. And for me, I always did a good job carving out my exercise, like just knowing that if I didn't get that, I was not going to be a great mom or a great person or, whatever. Yeah. But there were other areas where I would just sort of leave my needs aside and just be, it was almost like for the rest of the day, okay, fine. Yeah. And it really is starting small, starting with one area. Then, you get into prioritizing your sleep, or you get into choosing healthy meals, or you get into something. So if you're a listener,
I mean, literally it could be as simple as walking your dog every day quietly. Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be a big, massive ordeal, but you do need that time. Cause if we're operating like a ping pong all day, like what's like, I wake up, I grab my phone and who's emailing me, who needs something, like you're always in this state of cortisol release. And, it's like this constant stress ball zone, and that's going to age you really quick.
Well, and it also gets to your point, your discussion on excuses, which is interesting, because you feel like, I hear people say, but I'm so busy, but I'm like, there's so many excuses you can come up with that, but I have 3 kids, but I have 5 kids, but I have 1 kid, but I have no, whatever it is.
The same person that's saying that is arguing with me on Instagram for 20 minutes. Like, and it's like, okay, well, why don't you put your phone down and go do that for 20 minutes? So it's like, okay, you do have the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. And I love how you speak of excuses, that you're not here to validate excuses. We can find excuses. Our brain will look for all the excuses we want, and we just need to shift into the mindsets.
Yeah. I'm not here to validate. The thing is, validating someone's excuse makes them feel good in a moment, but it doesn't serve them. No. If I say you're right, that sucks, I keep you stuck. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to do that. And I had to get past my need to be liked for that, because it's a human need that we feel we need to be liked. And I realized that that's to me is selfish. Like I'm so concerned about being liked that I'm not going to stand for you. So I'm willing to not be liked to stand for a better version of you.
Yeah. Well, I do think that people pleasing comes into play for women not caring
big
for
time.
themselves. Have you seen that?
People pleasing, fear of judgment, huge. I mean, it starts as kids. I watched my daughter going through it at age 12, and we keep finding evidence to support it. So yeah, it's something that needs to be broken. And it takes work. I'm not going to lie. I get it. Cause we do want to be liked. We do want to say yes. We do want to be helpful, but then we get resentful. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really critical to look at that too. It's still a work in progress for me. I mean, I started with deciding. The way that you do it is you decide what your priorities are. Like where do the priorities to make me feel on point? So like for me, I knew that my self-care is a priority. I know that time with my daughter is a priority. I know that time with my husband is a priority. Like I know certain things in my business are a priority. So I had to decide that first, and then everything else is secondary. So when I build my calendar out, for instance, like on Fridays, I will never, ever, ever, unless it's Oprah, do an interview or have a meeting on a Friday, period.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing scheduled. Doesn't mean I don't work on Fridays. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't schedule anything on Fridays. I know it's important for me to have a day during the week where I can just think
Mm-hmm.
and plan and visualize and do what I need to do. So for me, I block that out ahead of time, and it gets really easy to say no to people because that's a priority to me.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I just want to point out, warriors, what she just said is that so you have to get clear on your priorities and get clear on what in your values is another word that I've heard people say, whether it's family and relationship.
Yeah.
And then what I like to look at is how does that show up on your calendar? Because often we will say one thing, like it's really important for me to XYZ, but then on our calendar, we have all these other things there. And
Yeah.
that is where I feel that disconnect internally when those things are not meshing, and it's you're saying
Yeah.
one thing and living another way does not feel good.
No, and it gets really easy to start saying yes and no to things when you're clear on your priorities. So if I know that I only have 4 days a week, that I'm open to stuff that's scheduled, and now I know what's my priorities in there. My priorities are still the same. I still have self-care. I still have my business. I still have my daughter. I still have my husband, my dog. Like I still have those priorities. So now how many things am I going to say yes to in those days? I'm only going to say yes to the things that I think really serve me, my audience, like what makes sense. Like if you had like I'm on this interview with you, and if you had, and I knew very well who your demographics were, what the point was, if you had just messaged me and said, hey, can we do a fitness interview? And, I have 18-year-olds, like I would have said no.
On Friday.
Yeah. Not because I don't think you're great, but because it doesn't fit into my vision, and it wouldn't serve either one of us, because I wouldn't be showing up as my best. I'd be showing up very rushed.
Yeah. And then you build up this resentment, like, oh, I did that and now I don't have time for this. And that's the important piece of the people pleasing and the judgment, is to, again, get clear on what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then it's our choice, sort of that choice versus that forcing it, has been really helpful for me. I also have found that as I have aged, one of the beauties of aging is that I don't care as much about other people's opinions.
Yeah.
I have gotten firmer in my own opinion of myself, and then other people might think something of me, and I'm like, yeah, you can have that opinion, that's fine.
Yeah. I also find that when we're really in our conviction, we don't care as much. When we're wishy-washy, we care. So if you watch, like just even on social media, if you watch people arguing about politics or I don't know, vaccines, whatever the topic of the day is, people are arguing and they're getting so passionate about it, and they're getting so offended, and they're so mad, and they're so triggered. Well, it's because they're actually not really truly in their conviction. Because if you're really in your conviction about something, you don't really care. Like I don't care. I really don't care if someone thinks that what I teach with nutrition and fat loss doesn't work. I don't care. It doesn't even faze me because I know it does. Like I'm so certain that I've helped hundreds of thousands of people. I'm so certain that it doesn't matter. So I'm not fazed at all. Mm-hmm. If someone challenges me on something I'm not certain about, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, I think I love that you bring that up. I have a saying that if it triggers you, it's about you. And that is, and it's that idea if someone was like, oh, your opinion on this isn't great, and we feel triggered, then you're more defensive. You're like, oh, well, maybe, but when you rest, I always say that I have a great singing voice, and my husband disagrees. And I'm like, you can, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm like, you're wrong.
Yeah. I had this about for years about my abs. Like it's so random, but people would say they're photoshopped. And I was like, and initially I got like bothered, and then I'm like, wait, but they are my abs. So I don't care. And I mean, there's so many videos that people think I videoed I don't even know how to Photoshop a video, but I'm like, whatever.
Like,
I just had to let it go. Yeah. So I think if we're really worked up, it's usually there's something to it. So lean into why it's triggering us so badly.
Yeah. So could you speak a little, because this has to do with your, I think you have a tattoo with surrender on it.
Yeah, I do. I tattooed that surrender for my birthday there because that was a word that was so important to me, because the opposite of control is surrender. Now I am definitely a control freak. Like I think there's a lot of women that are, and I think there's good and there's bad to it. good parts of being a control freak is I am very good at being structured and speaking my mind. And there's a lot of things that fall into that and that work. The bad part of control freak is if things don't go as planned, I would get really flustered. So surrender is the opposite of that. And surrender, to me, means different things to different people. But to me, it means that the universe, God, whatever you call it, knows more than we do. And so when there's an accident and we can't get past the traffic, there's a reason. When there is somebody cancels that you were expect, there's a reason. So I've really learned to let go and realize that there's a higher purpose and that the world, the earth, the universe knows more than I do. And I have to remind myself, and the reason it's on my right arm, on my forearm, is I can't not see that every day. So when I feel myself getting flustered, it's like, okay, just a reminder, I get to surrender.
Yeah. Well, I love it. And it also comes up for me when we're talking about other people's opinions or people pleasing or judgment, just sort of letting go of control of that. Like people can think what they want. They can have their views of your photoshopped abs and non-photoshopped abs. And it's like,
I had a lady message me the other day and she said, if I could afford Botox, I would look like you. And I'm thinking, okay, one, I don't have Botox in my forehead. I'm not against Botox, for the record, by the way. I've done it before in my life. I just don't choose to have it now because I want my forehead to move. Me personally, I'm not against it. But to me, I was like, does she really think if she could afford Botox, it was going to change her whole life? Like, I didn't even understand what she was.
Botox at all.
Yeah, but initially I got triggered. Like, I don't have Botox on my forehead. And then I was like, okay, why am I triggered? Okay, I'm triggered because I've done it before. Fine. And she thinks that. And then I was like, but wait, this isn't about me. It's about her. And she has disconnect thinking that if she could afford Botox, her whole life would be different. And she's missing it. She doesn't know her driving core motivator.
No. And it's also, I can see that being triggering because it discredits all the work that you do to get your sleep, to eat fresh and whole foods. And that's very interesting.
But the bottom line is, I think I'll explain on a deeper level. The reason I was triggered is I've done stuff before. So it's like, okay, well, I'm being called forth. It wasn't that, but I very public that I had breast augmentation when I was 19 years old. There's things. Yeah. So I think that my trigger was coming with that, but her trigger is a whole different story. So what I had to separate myself and surrender to was like, this isn't about me. This is about her own struggle right now. And it doesn't matter what I say or do right now. I can make her wrong. It doesn't matter. She's in her own thing.
No. And you know what else I like is that brings me back to mindset and the state of our mind and excuses. So if, I don't know this woman and I'm not trying, but if she's thinking, oh, if I could only do Botox, then that is again, the once I have this, then that versus okay, what can I do now? Let's not fight for our excuses. Maybe there's something small. Maybe I can put some coconut on my face.
There's also that I get the messages. If everything wasn't so expensive, I would be fit. Okay. That again, like there's Google, it's free. Not just from me. There's Google from everybody that's free. I've put like 10 years of free content out there. Like if you really want free, you can do it.
There's a lot. It's again, not looking for excuses, looking for solutions. And you're going to feel a lot better about that also, which is wonderful.
Exactly.
And that is why I just love your work. And I love the work you do with aging also.
Thank you.
Really pushing the envelope and saying, just because your doctor says it's true doesn't mean it's true. And let's look at some other alternatives and methods.
Yes. And to be clear, I'm not challenging a doctor's intention. I'm not challenging a doctor's diagnosis. I'm challenging what it means. Yeah. So what it is what it is. Like you have high blood pressure. I'm not saying that he's wrong. You do have high blood pressure. What that means does it mean you have to go on high blood pressure medicine? Maybe. Right. Does it mean you can try to tweak things with diet first? Sure. So it's just, what are you putting with it? Doctor says, you're going to gain 30 pounds. That is a false assumed truth. Like why? Because he had some patients that did. That doesn't mean you will. But the second we start believing that, we've got a problem.
I absolutely agree. And this reminds me, I think with your back surgery, weren't you told that you'd never be able to exercise again?
Yeah. So so my first back surgery was a rupture. I had a disc rupture 2.5 years ago. It was a massive disc rupture and I couldn't walk. It wrapped around my spinal cord. It wrapped around my nerve, down my sciatic path on my right leg. I had foot drop. My whole right leg was not working. It was an urgent surgery. So that one, I went and had the surgery, and my surgeon, everyone said, hey, you might need to really look at your career and switch this. I don't think you're going to be able to work out like you would. And had I believed that, everyone would have understood. I could have said, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. Everyone would say, oh, you're right. That sucks. I chose to not do that. I chose to go through alternative treatments, to exhaust everything. Can I work out the way that I once did? No. Can I do a lot? Yes. Have I learned a lot? Yes. So there was always a way. And then about a year and a half ago, I started getting really, really bad pain on the left side. The disc ruptured out the right side. The left side started having a lot of pain, and I didn't understand why. So I went and had an MRI, and you could see what happens when you have no disc. Like my disc had ruptured out. It'll start fusing together on its own. So your body will just start doing that on its own. And when it starts fusing together on its own, you can have nerve traps, you could have fragments, you could have all kinds of things causing pain. So it was very clear on the MRI what was happening and why I was feeling the pain. Now, if I had let insurance, for instance, and a surgeon dictate my next course of action, it was, you need a fusion, you have 6 months recovery, your career, like just all this stuff. I'm not saying that wouldn't have worked too. I chose, I'm going to exhaust other options first. I went on my own. I did stem cell. I did PRP. I did all the natural stuff. I ended up researching and doing another laser endoscopic surgery, which was a 2-day recovery.
Wow.
I was under general anesthesia, but it was a 2-day recovery. I am already working out again. I'm in absolutely no pain because I did my own research and looked. Had I let insurance dictate my treatment, because insurance didn't pay for that, it would pay for something else, that wouldn't have worked. Now, the next thing that might be coming up for someone that's listening is, well, I can't afford that. So, okay, again, false assumed truth.
Yeah.
We can when we decide something. I'm not saying you can afford it today or tomorrow, but when you set your intention to do something, you make things work. You find money to pay for what you want, regardless.
Well, and you open your mind to other possibilities. That's when we just are like, oh, this is the way, then we narrow in. I also have to bring to focus that women's health and women's wellness has not been studied nearly to the extent that it can, nor has aging. We have not, as a society, opened our mind to let's age in health. Let's age in this wonderful, uplifting way.
Yes.
I think people are starting now. I'm loving Dave Asprey and his work on Superhuman. And
I read his book. Some of it, I'm like, this is great. Some of it, I'm like, are you just crazy? Like, how do you do? Like, what the heck? You spend your whole life. So God love him. I love him.
But again, it's like opening up us to a different version, because when we're thinking about, he has said, I think that he wants to live to age 135, and most
180.
Okay. So when they think 180, they think nursing home and no mental capacity. But he's saying, no, we need to blow that out of the water. Let's look instead to the elder. And I love that. And I encourage listeners to get your book for the idea that let's age in reverse. Let's do little things to start opening our mind that better health is possible, that just because we're a certain age doesn't mean we're going to start packing on the pounds and, now you're going to forget your keys and all that stuff.
I will share that aging in reverse, people automatically go to, that's about looks. And I want to share, it's not about looks. First of all, there is a genetic component. I just showed a picture of my mom yesterday. She's almost 74. My mom looks incredible. I'm not going to lie. I have some good genetics in my family, as many people do. Some things are genetic. However, that doesn't mean you cannot thrive, change, whatever. So just because you're handed a different genetic set of cards doesn't have to mean, that's the false assumed truth, doesn't have to mean anything. So aging well, I'm not talking about like you can't have wrinkles or spots on your skin, or that's not what I'm talking about. Yes, you can conquer that if you want to, but I'm talking about thriving, having your focus, having your energy, having fun, truly living, enjoying your life, being present, all those things. Having mobility, moving, like that's what I mean about aging in reverse. It's not about just looking a certain way.
Well, and Natalie, I have to say that your book just screams that. So I imagine with some of your background, people might get that idea, but listeners, there was a link to the book in the show notes it does not, you're very open and saying, if you want the look piece of it, that's fine. But it's also, we need to be in a good physical body and a healthy mind, that all these pieces feed together to that aging in reverse.
Yeah, and I have to explain that because I think people really do think it's just because you could paint over rust and it's not going to last, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't matter. Like, so that's why I would not go down that road of just helping somebody with a physical appearance, because we're not fixing what's underneath and it's going to come through.
Yeah. And I also, if they've been longtime listeners of my show, I've talked about epigenetics and the possibility to reverse them. We have so much power in our mind. So
amazing. Yeah. And then there's always the external stuff. You can always do hormones. There's a lot of stuff you can do that physically change things too.
Yes. It's great. Okay. So if I have a middle-aged woman who's listening and just wants to take some small steps, what are some advice that you could give her as we're
Gosh.
starting to shift?
So the first thing is make that decision. Like decide, like ask yourself, like, what do I want in middle life and
Mm,
beyond? Like decide that first. And don't worry about what media tells you or your friends or whatever. Decide that first. Now, I'll tell you, for me, I have friends of all ages. I'm going to be real. A lot of my friends in their late 40s and 50s, I'm not as friendly with them anymore. Like I've like gravitated towards some of my friends in their 30s. You know why? Because I don't have the same complaints and stories.
yeah.
Like I'm getting tired of being around 50-year-olds that all they talk about is their aches and pains. I'm like, I got the aches and pains too. I don't want to talk about them.
Yeah. Let's
Let's
reverse
like,
that, warriors. We're done.
yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
a new decade. And when this is airing, it's a new decade. And I am so excited for the possibility. And if we can grab onto that, and I love just pausing and thinking, what do you want? Where are you
Yeah,
going? Where are
yeah,
you, like, what are you thinking every day? And what do you want? And make a vision board, put it by your bed,
yes.
have this great vision for the next 10
So
years.
one of my favorite people, Catherine Zinkina, she's in her 20s. She has a site called Manifestation Babe. She's a good friend of mine. She's got
I've heard
incredible
of
stuff. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Manifestation David. And yeah.
She's really, if you guys are not following her, she's incredible. But anyway, she had a post the other day and it really resonated with me. And I wanted to share this with my audience, and yours will get a kick out of this. A lot of times when we're fantasizing and visualizing what we want, what happens is our egos get in the way and our real life gets in the way. So we start thinking about our kids or our husband or our job or reasons. We go back to circumstances. Well, that wouldn't work. I don't have money. That wouldn't work because my daughter. That wouldn't work. So what she suggested is when you go through this visualization process, you have to first visualize that you're on a secluded island by yourself, and all your needs are going to be met right there. And there's no past. There's nobody else in your life. You have to do that first. And if anyone's popping up in your life, like your kids or your husband, you have to say they have their own island right now.
Yeah.
You literally have to like put yourself in a secluded island first. Like all needs are met. There's nobody else. What would I want? And it's really powerful. And she talks about how she makes herself stay there for 15 or 20 minutes. And I tried it. It's very effective because it is human nature to pop up circumstances why we can't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those excuses again, and those self-imposed stops and the false assumptions that like, no, what do I want? So I love that. So this podcast is called the Love Your Life Show. And are there any things that you do every day to sort of set yourself up for success, to live a life that you love?
So I make sure what I'm taking in, not just food, everything I'm taking in supports my growth and my vision. So for instance, I'm a huge podcast listener, love learning from podcasts. You've got a great one. I've got one called Leveling Up, Creating Everything from Nothing. So anything that is going to empower me like that, I listen to podcasts every day. I definitely have a journal nearby. I don't have like a specific journal. I just like to have something where I can actually physically write thoughts that come up, ideas that come up. I walk most days, unless it's like pouring rain. I will walk most days. I feel that just being connected to nature outside, I get very creative, get ideas. I make sure I'm doing that. I really am religious about my schedule. So only one day on my 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, only one day do I do interviews before 10 a.m. Other than that, everything starts at 10 a.m. So I have my morning time, my morning routine that I have that time to either sleep in if I feel like it, or have my healthy breakfast, or do my workout, whatever I want to do that day to put me in that right frame. So, and then I make sure I don't watch TV. I've fallen in the trap a few times of like, I'm going to get into the Netflix series or whatever, and it never goes well for me. It throws off my sleep. It throws off my thoughts, everything. So other than watching a documentary or a movie, I'm not a binge watcher of TV. I really try to stay away from that. In the car, I'm either listening to a podcast, or I'm in silence, or I listen to music that I choose. I really try to control what I'm taking in. I don't watch the news. So, and again, judgments on all this could be coming up from people, and it doesn't matter because I'm so sure.
You're in the right place.
I don't need to know.
This too. Yeah.
I don't need to know. Yeah. So it's, what am I feeding my brain? And I look at everything we're putting in as important, not just our food, but what are we drinking? Who are we letting in our lives? Who are we talking to? What's in our environment? Like my office is set up the way that I want, like for my optimal everything. So I really look at all of that.
Oh, thank you. I am so thrilled. You are just singing our language over here at the Love Your Life show. I've said, I don't watch the news. I do not watch TV.
Yeah.
different habits that really set us up for success. And so if a listener is listening, just choose one. And what I'm hearing as the resounding message is intentional living and this sort of mindfulness to what works for Natalie. And so you, whoever the listener is or the watcher, you know yourself the best and what works, and you know what doesn't work. And sometimes we tell ourselves things work, like, oh, I'm just going to sit down and watch 4 hours of Netflix and feel better. But then afterwards we don't feel better. So it's
No.
really paying attention to your inner guide and inner wisdom.
It's feeling the feels, not numbing out. It's feeling the feels. And by the way, if you're listening and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm listening and my life's a train wreck right now, because I know there's a listener out there that
Yeah.
it's like, I want you to know that, one, what I always say, you're not too old and you're not too late. And you can always start from where you are right now today. So you can become an entirely different person by changing your thoughts, actions, and habits. So you are not late to the game. It starts with a decision. You don't do everything at once, but you just decide, step into what you want first, and then those actions start to follow.
I love it. All right. Well, we are going to have all the links. We're going to have the links to your book. We're going to have links to the Aging in Reverse program that you have going on in our show notes. Is there anything else that we can do as listeners to help you spread your your aging in reverse? How can we help?
Yeah, I'd love for you to grab my book, but my community is aginginreverse.me. It's for women 40s, 50s, and beyond. We do every month is a different theme. It's not all weight loss or nutrition focused. We have that is involved, but we do, we've had a whole month on people pleasing. We have a month right now on stress and anxiety. So it's all themes. So would love to have you in that. And then I do have a January challenge coming up where you get like a trial membership of the Aging in Reverse community. And it's a full slim down challenge when I teach you how to eat. And that's back to basics with an X. Backtobasics.me.
Okay. Thank you so much, Natalie. Let's all head out there, warriors, and live a life we love while aging in reverse. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you.